All right, we'd like to welcome you to Logjam in episode 2, the official podcast of the League of Gentlemen. Your host, Darren Adams, myself, Tom Bruyere, and we're here to recap the 2018 League of Gentlemen draft. Darren, what do you think of the draft?
Well, I think it was an amazing draft. It's always good to get, 9 passionate fans together to discuss their fantasy football futures. It's always like Christmas morning for us. You're just waiting to find out what that present is. So I think we found a couple presents throughout each individual drafts, and we'll look to discuss those as we move forward. We have the commissioners' rankings that came out on our website earlier. Tom and myself will both be talking about those and where we rate teams, whether it's up or down the board. But let's get into it.
Yeah, we're going to open up. We're going to go through each of the picks and then a little bit of analysis of where we think those picks are going to fit into the year. One thing the 2018 draft will always be known for, we alluded to it either, it's the year of the Binter. And Binter, fuck off.
So Benner decided, for those of you who may not know viewing this podcast, to spend his time in Las Vegas during the fantasy football draft. So we had to literally have a communications technician on site to make sure that from his hotel room, he was able to see the draft board, know who was off the board, even though that didn't work out well, and he had plenty of shots he was doing. But, I think shot of the week...
The Clase Azul shot of the week is fuck Binter. All right, without further ado, we're going to get into our analysis. We're opening in no particular order with the Poway Titans. Darren, how did Poway do?
Well, the commission originally had Poway coming in the, I believe, the 9th spot. I thought with keepers Keenan Allen in the 2nd, Melvin Gordon in the 3rd. Sure, they're both LA Chargers, and we all know there's only one ball to go around, and when those touchdowns are compiled, it can only be one of those two players. So Devontae Adams then in the 7th round, Zach Ertz in the 12th. So I see Billy having 2 strong receivers, a great running back, a very strong tight end. Going in, I know he didn't have a pick in the first 4 rounds, so he's got to kind of wait, and I'm sure he's looking for a running back, as all of us really were throughout this draft. But he found Marshawn Lynch in the 5th. I know Billy's a big Raider fan, but that's a pretty good fall to a team that doesn't pick in the first 4 rounds. He then took Rex Burkhead in the 6th, so immediately trying to shore up that need of running back in that New England offense. He followed it with Julian Edelman, Devin Funchess, Jordy Nelson. So immediately went after the receivers to either bench or bye weeks to address those issues as well. All great picks. Giovanni Bernard, Phillip Rivers he took in the 11th, finally finding his starting quarterback. Now, once again, I'm going to address here, it's another LA Charger. So it's great when it's Keenan Allen, that's a double down. But if it's Mel Gordon all day, now there's 2 other players on your team that aren't really putting up points. So it's kind of a cut your throat. I don't know, we'll see how it works out for him. But as long as the Chargers are winning, I'm sure he won't be that upset. I have him with Theo Reddick in the 13th, Corey Clement in the 14th, Kenny Stills in the 15th, and then he found his defense in the Patriots defense there in the 16th. Great pick in the 16th round to find that top 3 or 4 rated defense after the runs that went on defenses, of course. He found Austin Eckler in the 17th to do that handcuff there, of course, for Mel Gordon. Once again, another Charger. And then Eli Manning in the 18th as his backup quarterback. And Eli seems to be drafted right around the 17th or 18th round every year. Never kept, but it's just like a whoopee blanket for somebody, So overall, I think the Poway Titans really did have a good draft, especially considering how much stock he didn't have. I would probably move him up the board after this. I don't see him as a 9th team. I see him as a 7th, possibly depending on trades or what have you. I could see this being a playoff team. So that's where we have the Poway Titans. Good luck this year. And we're going to move on to the Merci beaucoup.
Yep, aside from Merci, I do want to just state the irony of the San Diego kid that allegedly didn't like the Chargers. He's a Raiders guy. He was always opposite to, now that the Chargers are in LA, that he puts all the stock in there, I think is a pretty nice thing. Merci beaucoup. We had their keepers. Ari had them ranked as 8 preseason in the commissioner's poll. I looked at that based on strictly off the strength of OBJ in the 17th round and Dalvin Cook in the 2nd round. Some question marks after that is his running backs, and Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram out for 4 games. So I think his mindset going into the draft, he's always been a rookie guy. I think he started to look at some veterans, which I think could handle, and he probably needed some wide receivers. As we got into the draft, I was a little bit surprised that he went with Jay Ajayi right there in round 1, but a kind of a backfield share, but a guy that has some home run potential, a guy that you can put in every week. And then Allen Robinson to start to address that receiver need. And then he goes a little bit more balanced. Evan Ingram, a guy I like a lot, a former Avalon Avenger, and Carson Wentz, coming off injury, question mark, but was a top 5 guy for the games he played last year. Could have a pretty well-balanced team sitting right there already. We're in the 5th round, and he's got a pretty well-balanced team already. Now you're going to see him address that wide receiver window. I got Corey Davis, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. We don't know what Tennessee's going to do. They're saying they're going to become more up-tempo. Corey Davis could be a huge part of that. DJ Moore, he just couldn't help himself and had to get a rookie, went for some young guys. And then Robbie Anderson is a guy that showed some flashes over the course of the last year and a half. I think, a high upside pick.
Sam Darnold. It's going to be there now.
Sam Darnold, we're in there. New Orleans defense. So now I don't know if he was the first guy to complete his team, but he's right there with a complete lineup. Yep. He's got his 9 starters. And now we're going to take some shots. Rasad Matthews on injury. Devontae Parker, didn't know he was injured. We know now today he's injured. Unfortunate part of having to draft a little bit early in the year, and that's something we'll see for the next 2.5 weeks, I'm certain. Bilal Powell, doubling down on the Jets. We'll see what that turns out. My favorite pick of Mercy is Mike Williams down there. I think, again, Chargers offense. Billy probably won't want to hear that that's going to be a big guy, but I think Mike Williams is a big guy in that offense. C.J. Anderson, I don't know if that helps or hurt you. Maybe some insurance down the road. Overall, I give Mercy about a B minus. But I think that's not an 8th place team either. I think that's a team that moves up a spot. I think there's a lot of teams in that 3 to 7, 8 window. A lot of teams, as always, parity in the League of Gentlemen that are going to be battling for a playoff spot. I could see them there.
Absolutely. I think great job, Steve. I think that was a pretty good draft, as Tom stated. Let's move on to the Cardinal Sin. The Cardinal Sin had keepers of T.Y. Hilton in the 4th, LaShawn McCoy in the 10th. We have A.J. Green, who was in the 10th, fell to the 11th, and Jarvis Landry in the 13th. Quality keepers, obviously with 3 receivers and 1 running back. Again, the theme here, he's going to probably go into the draft looking for those running back positions. He knew he had the number 2 pick. We already knew Saquon Barkley was established as number 1, so therefore McCaffrey's going to fall to him. So I think that was a big decision in keeping 3 receivers. He then went Alex Collins in the 2nd, Lamar Miller in the 3rd. Again, running back. All good offenses. I like all those picks. Jimmy Graham in the 5th. Solid there now in Green Bay. Trey Burton, so back-to-back tight ends to make sure he has that addressed. Then he went Andrew Luck. I think we're all looking at that pick and, is it a steal? Is it, I don't know, in the 8th round, I think that's probably where Luck finds his way, even if he is pretty healthy. So I like Robert Kelly in the 8th. The Dez Bryant pick in the 9th. We'll wait and see how that goes. Even if he does sign in Cleveland, that's going to be upcoming. He went Steven Gostkowski. We know his love affair with the New England Patriot kicker. Matt Ryan in the 14th. I like that pick a lot better than the Andrew Luck pick. I really like the Matt Ryan that late. I can't believe he fell that long. Texans defense in the 15th. Deontay Foreman. Here we go with the rookies, or not the rookies, but the backups that probably are going to assume jobs. He gets them late. It's probably a quality keeper once Lamar Miller becomes Lamar Miller. LeGarrette Blount in the 17th. Knowing those are the goal line carries and that Matt Patricia offense now in Detroit. I mean, he scored, 17 or something in New England that year, and it was just all goal line, 1-yard dive. So I like that pick. And then Geronimo Allison, and I don't know a lot of that pick.
He announces the number 3 receiver in Green Bay, which is always a payoff.
Absolutely. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers. That could be a home run pick. That could. Overall, I see the Sin here. I think he got better in this draft. I really thought he had a good draft. His wide receivers are a question to me. Looking down the board, I don't see Dez Bryant as your 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and he's not even on a team. That's I think where the Sin works his magic, works his trades, or what have you. But I still think overall with his running back strength, and we'll see what happens with McCoy. But he really kind of band-aided that issue with Collins and Miller if he needs. I got him about where the commissioner had him at 6. I see him making the playoffs, possibly as a 5 or 6 seed. That being said, we're going to go ahead and move into our sponsor portion of the program.
Brought to you by Meow Mix, and we do want to thank all of our sponsors for the year-long podcast. Meow Mix, especially. Once we start talking about the Hammers, we're going to start talking about Ari's cats. So here we are. We're going to get into the Hebrew Hammers. We look at their keepers this year. We said it in the first podcast. Alvin Kamara is your end-all, be-all. You have Travis Kelce. Could have been Tyreek Hill. It could have been Kareem Hunt. We saw him divest himself. Could have been LaShawn McCoy. Divest himself. Ends up with Russell Wilson and Pierre Garçon. Couple of question marks there in my mind as far as keepers. That tells you Ari's needs. He wants to defend a championship.
And a girlfriend.
He needs a girlfriend. He got dentures. Congratulations on that, Ari. A couple of things, but as far as what he needs, I didn't think it was going to be rookie running backs, but he went ahead and proved me wrong. Royce Freeman in the first, Rashad Penny in the second, Keenan Balaj in the 13th, Nyheim Hines in the 16th, Jordan Wilkins in the 17th. Not to mention Aaron Jones in Green Bay. A lot of rookies, a lot of young guys, a lot of unproven guys, a lot of shots in the dark maybe without necessarily proven every week starters. But I guess if you have Alvin Kamara, you don't need every week starters. You can put in whoever you want. And if any of those guys hit, at the end of the year, he's probably going to put this back on us and say, look what I did. I think Ari has a couple of fantastic mid-round picks. In the second, he gets Doug Baldwin. I think he gets Brandon Cooks. Again, another brand receiver in a big offense. You see him get Emmanuel Sanders. So he really took advantage of that middle round to get some, what I would say, more proven commodities. Backs it up with the Minnesota D. Matt Breida, we know he's going to be points. I know there's some similarity between Breida and McKinnon, but we all have a little bit of faith in what that offense could do.
Absolutely.
Again, Jamison Crowder, another quality receiver to add to that list. He's got some depth there. I think Derek Carr could be a sleeper. We don't know what's going to happen in that John Gruden offense coming up, but we do know that Derek Carr has proven to put up numbers and is I think at least a good counterbalance to what you might find from Russell Wilson. And then you get a Martavis Bryant, again, kind of doubling down, getting himself in those Raiders offense. Overall, no matter what grade you give Ari right here, and I give him about a C, leaning to a C- on the Rashard Penny news. No matter what happens, Ari's draft is going to rely around what happens with rookie running backs, and that's not always a given. So I would have trouble moving him up. I think, based on those last twos that are going to move up a little bit, I think we move him down a little bit. Doesn't mean he can't make the playoffs. We know he's going to make a lot of moves, but I just don't know of his strength coming out of this draft.
All right. Well, that would move us from, obviously, the Hammers into the Fury. Chris started with Joe Mixon, who he made a trade for on keeper night to the 3rd round. He has DeAndre Hopkins in the 6th as one of his keepers, Chris Hogan in the 7th, and then Robert Woods in the 9th. So we have 3 receivers here. We have 1 starting running back. He's looking for running back, is our thoughts as he goes in the draft. And the medicine he found was Dion Lewis in the 2nd, Ronald Jones Jr. in the 4th, and Ty Montgomery in the 8th. So he went running back, and I don't know if any of those are really going to hit the way he was hoping. I think the Dion Lewis was a little early, especially when you got guys like Marshawn Lynch on the board, which we've talked about. Maybe I'm wrong here, of course, but
Dion Lewis in that New England backfield, it's always a crapshoot. You never know what's coming there. Sure. He's going to have big weeks, but which weeks are they?
And now with Sony Michel there, and with Rex Burkhead there, and with it's
Jeremy Hill.
It's Bill Belichick. We never know who's going to get the lion's share. So I just think it could work out, but it also could be a little early for Dion Lewis. The David, help me out here.
Njoku,
the tight end. Then he went Patrick Mahomes in the 11th. High-powered Kansas City Chiefs possible offense there. I like the pick. He went Big Ben to follow up, just to kind of make sure he had plenty of options there at quarterback. He obviously, like Big Ben's so
Took
much
him again in the 13th.
that he took him again in the 13th. He went back to back.
Unprecedented.
Big Ben. It's unprecedented. Never seen it. Of course, we couldn't let him do that. We should have, but we didn't. And we allowed him to re-pick after his shot. And of course, again, this is all through FaceTime of 500-mile, well, maybe not, but a long-distance FaceTime with Benner at the Bellagio, choosing to spend one more night in that hotel room with little Gary, rather than be at the draft. So, shot of the day. By the way, honestly, both Tom and I love Clase Azul. This is just our favorite tequila. He went tight. He went Tyler Efert, if I didn't say that, in the 13th instead of Big Ben. So he got Tyler Efert, another tight end. He went Titans D in the 14th. Danny Amendola, John Ross, Josh Rosen, and Chris Boswell, his kicker. It was tough to draft from far away, and it reflects that. It's just not a really high-powered offense. I just don't see Benner really making a run here. He might be selling something, DeAndre Hopkins, and trying to get better for next year, and we may see those blue danglers, Benner. So we'll see that. But
I mean, it looks like maybe we're cutting out more technical difficulties from Las Vegas on the Vinter pick. Not certainly unusual there. So I guess we'll take that and we'll transition into who's your daddy. Keepers coming in. Ari has ranked daddy at number 4. I probably agreed with that. David Johnson, how can you argue with that? Michael Thomas, I think, are your top 2. Jared Goff is where we see a lot of people in the League of Gentlemen, unlike years before, taking stock in young quarterbacks in high-powered offenses.
This is one.
And this could be a transition year. This could be the year where people are nailing quarterbacks, and Jared Goff is right there. And then Chris Thompson. Again, I think that Washington backfield has been something that has been a little bit of a Rob Kelly and a this guy and then a that guy. We seem to think that Chris Thompson is there, and with the injury, maybe he is their number 1 guy. And we're
in a PPR league, obviously he's an incredible pass catcher. So if he does get opportunities on further, I mean that could be a home run.
It could be. So that's where we're sitting. I think what helps that number 4 rank is we all knew that Saquon Barkley was going to be his guy. I think it was his mindset coming in, and I think the maneuvers he made to get yourself Saquon Barkley and David Johnson are going to pay dividends down the road. That's going to be someone we're going to see in the daddy roster for a long time. I will contend that including Saquon Barkley and these next picks that he makes, that who's your daddy may have, not counting your keepers, may have drafted a playoff team in the League of Gentlemen just with his guys. I really like this draft.
Wow.
Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas.
Absolutely.
I think Cooper Kupp is probably the first reach. I think Delaney Walker, then backed up 2 rounds later with Jordan Reed, could show a statistical advantage in that tight end position. I think Tariq Cohen is a guy that is another change of pace, going to catch some balls, going to get some speed. And Marvin Jones, I mean, the guy was a consistent. If he wasn't in the top 15, he was in the top 11, 12. I think you've put yourself in great position. Baltimore D is another D that's consistently at the top of the program. James White, you take your shot at that New England backfield. I think Matt Stafford, I think that pick is what solidifies this draft for me, because I don't know that Jared Goff is keeper worthy, but that might be just my opinion and I might be wrong. But between Goff and Stafford, if you have one of those 2 guys to start every week, I think you find yourself with the QB1 every single week.
He could be playing matchups with those two guys.
Duke Johnson, another change of pace guy, a guy that could get you consistent points. Matt Prater, who gives a fuck about kickers. And then Jonathan Stewart, an oldie but a goodie off the scrap pile. I really do like Daddy's draft. I like his keepers. I like the way he set himself up for this year. Going into the draft, we had him at 4. I think he didn't do anything to hurt himself. In fact, may have moved up a little bit.
Absolutely.
We're not giving final rankings. That's the commissioner's job. But I really like Daddy's draft.
Absolutely. From Daddy, let's go ahead and let's get into the Zorros. So Joel decided to keep as his 4 keepers Leonard Fournette in the 1st, Antonio Brown in the 3rd. He went Aaron Rodgers in the 15th, of course, and then he brought Kenyon Drake up for bid in the 18th, and somehow he only got bid up to the 17th. So I think another good pick from the Zorros, who historically, with Aaron Rodgers in the 15th, historically he had Gronkowski in the 16th. Now with that Kenyon Drake pick in the 17th could be just one of those Zorro picks that we all go, why does Joel always end up with the late round best keepers? There's something to be said about that, Joel. So continued good work and good job. As we entered the draft, having those two running backs, having a number one receiver, and having a quarterback, he went for Josh Gordon in the 3rd as a receiver. Maybe a little early for Gordon, just because we really don't know what his status is, when he's coming back with the team, if he'll stave suspension once again off. You know, I mean, the guy's consistently in trouble.
Personal issues going back many seasons.
However, if he stays on the field, it's arguable that he could be a top 5 receiver. His skill set's amazing. The guy is a freak athletically. It's just, can he stay on the field? Can that Browns offense in that division? These are a lot of really questions, like the Browns and drug. I mean, it's just an area, I think, in the 3rd round that I don't know if that's a little bit early for Josh Gordon, but we'll see how it goes. He went Isaiah Crowell in the 5th. He went Randall Cobb in the 7th. He got his defense in the Eagles' defense in the 8th. He also took Greg Olsen. I missed him in the 5th. Elshon Jeffrey in the 4th. We're not sure how he's going to quite come back yet. He also went Kirk Cousins in the 12th. Chris Carson, which might look like a good pick.
It's a pick that I really like.
In the 13th. I think it was a good pick, even if Rashard Penny doesn't break his finger or get injured. Hand, finger, knees and toes, something. But again, with the rookie now being hurt, he's missing more time. He's missing more opportunity to learn those lingos and offenses. It's just a better situation for Chris Carson. I liked him already, but now in that 13th round, could be a great pick. Here's the homer pick. The Cardinals defense, when you have defenses like the New England Patriots on the board, the Denver Broncos on the board, I believe the LA Chargers on the board in this round. I could be wrong there, but I think that's a little bit of a homer pick with the Cardinals defense. Hey, I'm wearing the shirt. I love them, but maybe a little early. We'll see how it goes. He took Hayden Hurst and Doug Martin, Jake Elliott, Samaje Perine, and Peyton Barber to round his roster. Not necessarily in that order, but I see Joel staying right there at around the commissioner's rank of number 5. I see Joel as a playoff team. Depending on what moves he makes, I'm going to keep him right there about number 5, 5, 6, somewhere around there. But I expect that the Zorros will be in the playoffs. By the way, we're not going to do another podcast prior to the first week 1 recap. So Joel, we know you're having a baby at this time, and nothing's cooler than that, bro. Congratulations from Logjam and from Tom, myself. Tell your wife congratulations, and that's obviously a wonderful time. So we just wanted to at least share our sentiments that we care, and congratulations to.
Absolutely, awesome. Congrats, best of luck to health and happiness all the way across there. I think just to kind of round out the Zorros, traditionally he's been a guy that has gone 0 running backs. He's kind of gone all the way through, and you see him kind of taking stabs a little bit earlier, even though that Drake pick. So a little bit of change of philosophy, but you see him taking the stabs at running back late in this draft. We'll see if this is the year that
did he get enough at that position is why I have him really not upgrading to still a playoff team, but I just don't see him jumping up to 3 or 4 because with Leonard Fournette and Kenyon Drake, and then it goes Crowell, Chris Carson behind a really terrible Seattle Seahawks offensive line.
We're talking ourselves out of that pick.
Samaje Perine behind a terrible Washington Redskin line. Peyton Barber in this cloudy Tampa thing. I just don't know that the running back, Doug Martin, but I just don't know that the running back position was addressed in an aggressively enough way to make him move up the board. But I still got you in there, bro. I still got you in the playoffs.
All right. I mean, it was still Leonard Fournette and Kenyon Drake in there, or not?
Enough said, right?
Probably could be top 10 guys. All right. That's going to move us to Young and Confused. Another guy who went in, made some off-season moves that we liked. That he put himself in an offense. He's going to end up with Tyreek Hill. He's going to end up with
He's going to end up with Kareem Hunt. Both of those in the second and third round as two of his keepers.
He does. And then Devonta Freeman has been his stalwart. He's been a top 10 guy for, I think, going on 3 years now. Has been a staple part of his offense. And then you see, again, in the Jared Goff frame, a flyer on Deshaun Watson. Yes, Deshaun Watson produced. Yes, he got smashed because their offensive line was terrible. What do you like coming back off of injury? But all kinds of upside. So you see that there.
I'm, not as skeptical of the Deshaun Watson pick. As a matter of fact, watching him at Clemson, watching him beat Bama, watching him and read those defenses that early, adjust, make those, and you see immediately do it in the NFL.
Yeah.
Having a guy like DeAndre Hopkins throw it down the field, being able to have that running ability, I'm big on Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Could be an intimidating lineup to face as we get through the year.
Absolutely.
I think his mindset going into the draft is finding production, finding producers, and you see that right away. Juju Smith-Schuster, Ben Roethlisberger, if he's always a top 10 quarterback, there's got to be some production in there. And the number 2 spot in Pittsburgh has always been fantastic. Marlon Mack, less of an offense, more questions in there, but probably a little more of at least for weeks 1, 2, and 3, a more consistent role. You think he's going to get the touches until one of those rookies gets there, and then maybe Ari takes over there. Will Fuller matching up with our guy. Kyle Rudolph, I think, is going to be. I look at this as maybe the steal of the draft right there in the 6th.
I would agree. It's in the conversation.
You saw Kirk Cousins. Even going back to Vernon Davis, finding a little bit of a security blanket there in the center of the field. I think that's a great pick.
Red zone.
Marquise Goodwin was an Avenger at the end of last year, someone that Garoppolo has really targeted in on. I think that's a great pick. And then Tevin Coleman, I don't think he expected to end up with Tevin Coleman, but when you think about what Devonta, what he has already to back that up with Coleman, and then if there's injury on either side, you have the workhorse there. Yep. I think that's a great pick. Nelson Aguilar, again, a lot of mouths in Philly, but a good pick. Sony Michel. Again, you never know. That could be the pick of the year. You don't know what's going to happen in New England, but if he is a production back, man, boy, could that be big. Jacksonville D, the number 1 defense off the board. Yep. Kelvin Benjamin, meh. Williams, I think another guy that could end up by week 6, week 7, outshining the rest of that backfield. Kenny Golladay, I love Kenny Golladay. And then your kicker, Justin Tucker, and Christian Kirk. Again, if Josh Rosen is going to be Benner's keeper, you got Fitz and you got Kirk.
Yeah, and reportedly, from what I understand from leak sources or insider information, that the Young and Confused actually have partied with Christian Kirk.
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal,
Kind of important things in League of Gentlemen lore that we have 2 degrees of separation between the Cardinals receiver. I think some of my affinity for this young draft might be that he got some of the guys I was targeting or owned in the past that I think have a ton of upside. But I give this a straight A as a draft. If he's ranked at number 3, I don't know if you move him up past Avengers and Pimps, but this could be. I would have to think a favorite to have one of those 2 buys and for sure be a playoff team this year.
Absolutely, I think he's a playoff team even if he makes some mistakes. A bad trade. I think with the quality of roster he has, the draft he had, I expect to see Young and Confused in those last 14, 15, if not 16 weeks.
I think we're good.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and move to, this is kind of an awkward part of the podcast, is to sit across from the manager, Tom, who owns, obviously, the Avengers, and to talk about his draft. So it is a little bit awkward, but we're going to be honest with each other, and we're going to let each other know, hey, this is what I thought. So we decided that we would never mind, I'm not going to say it because that would get kind of weird. So anyway, let's start with the Avengers here. Perennial playoff team for many reasons, but here's probably one of the biggest. Le'Veon Bell in the 7th round as a keeper. Ezekiel Elliott in the 1st round. I've tried to get Ezekiel Elliott. I've offered multiple 1st-round picks. I ended up with Todd Gurley, so I'll be okay with it, but I understand why you don't want to trade Ezekiel Elliott. Even as a 1st-round value, it's still somehow value, especially when you're picking 8, 9, or 10 every year, for Christ's sake. Julio Jones in the 4th, and Stephon Diggs in the 5th. Stephanie Diggs in the 5th. He's got 2 receivers that are really strong. He's got 2 running backs that are really strong. I don't know that Tom entered the draft the same way a lot of us did, with a necessity to go after running back right away. If you have Le'Veon Bell and Ezekiel Elliott, can you play flex? Can you go 3 receivers while people are chasing running backs? Tom decided, I'm going to go Mike Evans, which was the best available player. He fell to the 2nd round. Remember, this is a keeper draft, guys, so 40 players are off the board after the 1st round. Late in the 2nd, Mike Evans is there? Wow. I like that pick. Carlos Hyde in the 3rd, addressing the running back. Michael Crabtree in the 5th, absolutely. And then Drew Brees in the 6th. Drew Brees in the 6th. That's like Drew Brees in the 10th. So I like that pick a lot. Nick Chubb in the 8th, again, addressing a running back, going after a rookie. As we've already discussed, it's the Browns, so but maybe, right? I mean, they're on Hard Knocks, and we all know how lucky those teams have been. The L.A. Chargers defense, good pick there in the 10th round. He went D.D. Westbrook in the 11th, Devontae Booker in the 12th. We'll see how this works out. I don't really know what the Broncos are going to do. Are they going to go, hey, Devontae Booker's our guy, and make the rookie wait a little? I think eventually, Rolls-Royce takes over that job. But for the first couple weeks, maybe it's Devontae Booker's. So I like that 12th round pick. But does Tom play Devontae Booker? I mean, with Le'Veon Bell and Ezekiel Elliott, maybe he flexes one week. Maybe it's a plug and play. We'll see how it goes. Jimmy Garoppolo in the 13th, good pick there, backing up his Drew Brees as if he needs to back up Drew Brees, but who knows? And if anything were to happen, Jimmy Garoppolo is a great pick there in the 13th. This is the one I like, the Calvin Ridley pick in the 14th. I think everybody's excited about Calvin Ridley. If you've watched him at Bama, you've seen what a great wide receiver, very physical. I just think at that 14th spot, especially for the Avengers who own Julio Jones. So Julio Jones is a 4th. There's incredible value there. But here we go with these contract things or what have you, and eventually maybe Julio Jones finds a different home. Maybe it's not in a high-powered offense. But that replacement of the Calvin Ridley in that offense at the 14th round could be an incredible value in the future, if not this year. If not very soon. The Chase Edmonds pick in the 15th, I do like. He backs up David Johnson here in Arizona. But from what we've seen, he's really looks good. Not that he's going to see the field a lot, but if something were to happen to David Johnson, again, a contract situation, we all expect that to be resolved, but it's just a hold 'em pick there in the 15th and see what happens.
It's a hold 'em pick. It's a little bit of a faith in Steve Keim's ability to assess talent. Yes. That does not mean the girls he would potentially be picking up at bars, allegedly, or driving. But
the
those
roads
are
he would
others.
take home.
Yeah, hurt.
We have George Kittle in the 16th, Jack Doyle in the 17th, so here go the tight ends, and then Dante Pettis' boy from Washington there in the 18th. And that could be a keeper. I don't know if as much talent as he has, but it's fun for him to have that guy in his team. Tight end is a position where I could see the Avengers looking to address in a trade or a drop an ad or something. That might be a position he looks to address, or he hits on the Jack Doyle or So I don't see a lot of errors in this draft from where he was drafted. Remember, he's drafted at that back end, so I don't see a lot of errors. The one I would like to discuss, though, is the Jerick McKinnon. He did not keep Jerick McKinnon. He did not put McKinnon up for bid. So I think, we've talked about this post or, pre-meeting and pre-production. I don't know that it was the world's biggest mistake. I don't even think that at all. But I do think that McKinnon up for bid, and if he falls to him at the 17, maybe he lets go of Stephon Diggs there. But either way, not the end of the world. But it's just something that, I think all the rest of us were like, McKinnon's there? I know I am. I know Ari would be. I know if he was there when you drafted in that position later, you would have taken him. So, but again, with running backs like Le'Veon Bell and Ezekiel Elliott, as long as they stay healthy, there's nobody else you're putting in that spot ever. A bye week, that's it. and he'll survive bye weeks just fine. And expect to see the Avalon Avengers against in the playoffs. I have Tom as 1A, 1B. The commissioner has him as 2 after the pre-ranks of the keepers. I just see it as 1A, 1B. I think he's a very strong team that I, of course, this year have to play again twice.
Yeah, that's not a favorable schedule for either of us. But that takes us out of there. I do want to defend that Jared McKinnon pick, but
Sure.
we'll get into that later. We'll get into the Pimp. What we saw out of the Pimp this year was some GM architecture unlike anything we've seen. We have a flurry of trades. I think if you look at the picks that were traded this year, like everyone has at least 4 or 5 picks in somebody else's round.
A lot of trades.
I think Darren selling off last year, what he got in return put him in position, and the commissioner agreed. The commissioner ranks him as number 1. Tom Brady and Gronk, if they stay on the field, and that's more the Gronk injury than anything with Tom Brady.
Sure.
That's a 1-2 punch that is incredibly powerful. That will win you enough weeks to make the playoffs with just those guys. And then you start adding in your keepers. You start adding an Adam Thielen that will consistently. I mean, what did he catch? 6-7 balls a game last year. Got a couple of touchdowns here and there.
Yeah, maybe has a more effective quarterback, maybe not. Let's go and see.
And then adding what I think is the number 1 piece. I think in a redraft league, Todd Gurley might be the number 1 overall pick this year, just based on what he's doing in the McVay offense, how much faith they showed in him, how many times they started to throw him the ball. We all agree that he's in a good position. So I think that the Pimp's mindset going in a rebuilding year, in a putting back together, has now taken shape into just finding consistent points to fill out to make sure that he's not, having big swings from week to week. And I think that's what you see. 2 first-round picks. You end up with Jerick McKinnon and Jordan Howard. I don't think you can do better. I had them going into the draft as my number 1 and number 2 running back. So I think, not counting Saquon, so I guess number 2 and number 3.
Or McCaffrey, maybe. Did you have him above McCaffrey?
I had him both above McCaffrey. Right. Nothing personal. I think it's great. It might be my affliction for not liking Cam Newton, but that's all I'm thing. Amari Cooper, again, we already talked about John Gruden. I mean, he might be a plug-and-play starter. So now you have 2 wide receivers that are in great shape, but then you follow that with Golden Tate, and then you jump to Sammy Watkins. I think you put yourself in position to have what is for sure really, really good, consistent scoring weeks, which was his goal. I was a little jealous, a guy that I was targeting on the board that Darren was really happy about. You knew he was.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done.
We're going to lay our weary heads to rest. Kerryon Johnson in his hometown Detroit Lions. I owned Kerryon Johnson last year. I'm in a college fantasy league, and the guy's a beast. The guy can just run. I would expect nothing less than for him to be the starting running back at Detroit this year. So I think that's a good pick. Rams D. I mean, your only question marks with the Rams D is in a high-powered offense, how much they're on the field. They could score a lot, but they have that big playability. They're going to get you sacks. They're going to get you turnovers. I think that's a good pick there. Seems to be right around where the defenses went, right in that 8th, 9th, 10th, started coming off the board. So I think that's a good grab there. Sterling Shepard, I mean, nothing personal, but OBJ, between personal issues and injuries, you never know for sure. Is he super effective? But Sterling Shepard right there. Greg the Leg Zuerlein trying to get some points up there. Cam Newton, I don't know how you didn't. I passed on him a couple of times. I saw him sitting there. He was the best quarterback on the board for quite a while during this draft. So that puts you in good position if Tom Brady does happen to be too old this year. They said they're going to start running him a little bit more this year, so that's a great piece. Darius Geis immediately goes into your IR slot.
Yep.
Who knows? That could be a keeper, could provide trade value. The guy was an absolute stud in Georgia. Alan Hearns, again, a revamped Bears offense.
He's in Dallas now.
Alan Hearns is in Dallas.
Yeah, he's the number 1 receiver in Dallas.
Well, Dak Prescott's got to throw to somebody, huh?
Probably be your boy Zeke out of the backfield with my luck.
Yeah, probably. Antonio Gates going with the I'm going to back up an old tight end with an old tight end trick, and then Mr. Kelly to round things out. Again, you see your importance in running back and wide receiver. You see balance at quarterback. You see balance at tight end. You've got a kicker and a D that are in the top 5 in those spots. I can't come up with a reason. I think it's a fantastic draft. I have him as an A to A plus. And I can't. I'd be astonished if the commissioner moved him out of that number 1 spot in his preseason ranking. So that's it, man. That's my recap. Great draft, gentlemen. It was other than Benter ruining the entire thing. I think we had a fantastic draft.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Well, thanks for watching the second episode of Logjam and the official podcast of the L.O.G. Tom Brie, Darren Adams, happy to be here. Remember, subscribe. Down here in this corner right here, down here, there's a button, red button that says subscribe. We need you just to click on that,
Maybe
subscribe.
leave us a comment, whatever you want to do.
Chat with us, leave us a comment.
Anyway, gentlemen, in the league, good luck. Those of you tuning in other fantasy leagues, good luck the rest of the
Good luck, guys.
Cheers.